Freddie Coleman, as always, on the Friday show. ESPN's Freddie Coleman, Freddie and Fitz, 9 o'clock at night to 1 a.m. Great listen Monday through Friday. We always enjoy having Freddie then come on our show on Fridays here during the NFL football season, which now reaches the final week of the regular season. Good morning, Freddie Coleman.
Happy early New Year, my friend Roger. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, my friend. You've had a little time off here, and we appreciate you coming on and getting us set for the weekend. And I don't know what the final weekend is going to bring because most of it has been decided, not all of it, but what are some of the intriguing matchups you are looking at and you will be watching for when you get to Sunday?
Well, the one thing I want to see is how much of a case for MVP Todd Gurley of the Rams is going to make, because I thought people forgot about how great he was his rookie season because what happened last year with the end of Jeff Fisher and his coaching tenure with the Los Angeles Rams, and Jared Goff as a rookie quarterback not able to find his footing. And all of a sudden they hear people say, hey, that Gurley guy's pretty good. Well, yeah, he's been pretty good for the first 3 years in the National Football League. I wonder if he has a big game this Sunday, how much of an impact, how much of a dent he can make in the MVP race between him and Tom Brady, when it seemed not too long ago, Roger, we were talking about Carson Wentz was going to be the runaway MVP, but he gets injured, and it's as if he's an afterthought, and he should still be in the MVP race despite his injury that happened to the Philadelphia Eagles. That's the one thing outside of who's going to win the NFC South, whether we get 3 teams out of that division into the playoffs. That's the one thing I can't wait to see, that if Gurley has a big game, how much of that could sway and impress more voters to vote for him instead of Tom Brady for MVP.
You've got the Patriots at home and the double-digit favorite to beat the Jets, and New England needs the game. I mean, they want to wrap up the AFC's top seed, so I expect them to come out firing on all cylinders, Freddie. And for the Jets, I mean, not been a great year, but Bryce Petty will get another chance here to prove what he can do, not only to the Jets organization, but anybody else who's going to be paying attention to Bryce Petty for a team that he may end up on in the future. So there is a little something on the line for both teams, certainly Bryce Petty individually, and then New England to get that top seed.
Well, honestly, I think the Jets starting quarterback is not on this roster this year, because even if Josh McCown comes back next year, if I'm the New York Jets, I make a play for a guy like Kirk Cousins of the Washington Redskins, because if the Redskins are going to do this again, and kind of him and haw with his salary, with his financial package, if you're the New York Jets with salary cap space, I think you would do yourself a disservice not to kick the tires and find out exactly what it's going to take to bring that guy to your football team, because Kirk Cousins is going to elevate your offense. He'll be better than what you have there right now. And outside of Washington, when you think about it, his options are going to be limited, because he's not going to go to San Francisco because they found their quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. He could possibly go to Denver, but I wonder how much John Elway will give another chance to Paxton Lynch since he drafted him. If you're the New York Jets, you don't wait for somebody to say, okay, we have an interest in Kirk Cousins, then you get into play. The minute he is on the market, or if there's any inkling that the Redskins are not going to re-sign him, if you're the Jets, you make a play for a guy that has not only played pretty well, but has played a lot better than people want to give him credit for in the 3 years he's been the starting quarterback with the Washington Redskins. That's what I would do if I'm the New York Jets.
Freddie Coleman with us here every Friday morning during the NFL season at 10:30. You can find him on Twitter at Coleman ESPN. Freddie, first of all, what make us feel worse? What's the temperature where you are right now?
Oh, it's going up to 55 today. I mean, they've had a little winter come through here. When it goes down to 35, 40 degrees, a lot of people don't mind it, but they really don't like it. But then when I hear about the temperatures where we live at, whether it's Connecticut or where you guys are at in the Capital District, and when polar bears are thinking this is too cold, then you know it's freezing up in your area right before New Year's.
I love that. Freddie, I want to get your thoughts on what the Giants are doing here, the hiring of their GM and who their next head coach may be. What was your reaction when you heard about the hiring of Dave Gettleman, and what do you think might be the best route to go in terms of hiring a head coach?
Well, I thought the Giants were in a no-lose situation, because if you got either Dave Gettleman or Louis Riddick of ESPN, I thought they were going to be in great hands getting past what has happened so far with the organization, whether it was Jerry Reese and then whoever he hired or whatever players he brought in. Dave Gettleman was able to rebuild the Carolina Panthers where they got to a Super Bowl, and they have 40 wins under his watch as a general manager. So he knows how to build a franchise. He knows how to build an organization after it has been torn down and build it back up. So I thought that was a really good hire by the New York Giants. And if I'm Dave Gettleman, and you guys, I'm not in the business of telling grown men or grown women what to do, but the first Josh McDaniels, because when the Patriots get that bye, you got a 2-week period between when they play the last regular season game and their first playoff game. I think Josh McDaniels has learned from what happened the first time as a head coach when he was a member of the Denver Broncos, where it started off well, and then when things went haywire, he didn't know how to handle that. I think he's completely learned his lesson from what happened then with that organization. And you have a guy that knows how to speak to quarterbacks and knows how to teach quarterbacks. I mean, anybody can teach Tom Brady, but look what Josh McDaniels has been able to do after Bill O'Brien left to go to Penn State, and people wondered if Tom Brady was going to be that kind of guy again. Well, we've seen what Josh McDaniels has been able to do his second stint with New England. That's the first call I would make if I'm Dave Gettleman. And if that doesn't work, I mentioned Bill O'Brien. If he's having issues with Rick Smith, the general manager, and it gets to a point where they can't be around each other, we've seen what he's done with quarterbacks in the National Football League. I know that's not making Deshaun Watson happy, but if I'm the Giants, if Josh McDaniels is not your guy, you find how much it would take to pry Bill O'Brien from the Houston Texans to take over this organization.
Freddie, the Bills have to win this weekend, and it still might not be good enough. They have not made the playoffs since 1999, and looks like they may be on the outside looking in again. But even if they are, from what you've seen out of this Buffalo team and their new coach, Sean McDermott, has it been a step in the right direction for the Bills, no matter whether they make or don't make the playoffs this season?
I don't think it's been a step in the right direction. I think it's been steps in the right direction, and here's why. Because the whole thing that happened in the middle of the season with Tyrod Taylor could have completely unraveled the season for the Buffalo Bills, and that did not happen. They still continued to play hard. They still continued to fight hard and put themselves in a position. I mean, when you said it out loud, they have not made the playoffs since 1999. Twitter wasn't around yet, and that was the last time the Buffalo Bills made the playoffs. The social media wasn't around for this or for anybody. So the fact that it's been that long for them is just mind-boggling, because sometimes those things should happen by accident, getting into the playoffs. But I love what McDermott has been able to do, get these guys playing hard. I think he's got a guy in Kelvin Benjamin who can be that number one receiver in that division. Now, what do they do at quarterback? Do they take a chance on Tyrod Taylor again, or do they go after somebody else? Do they find somebody in the draft and then place their faith in that person? That's going to be the biggest decision when it comes to the Buffalo Bills, because defensively they're not bad. They got a star running back in LaShawn McCoy who makes everybody better, and their offensive line is underrated. What are they going to do about that quarterback position is the biggest question going into the offseason, whether the Buffalo Bills are able to make the playoffs or not. But these have been steps in the right direction, because now they have an identity and they have a better culture than they had when Sean McDermott was hired last year.
Freddie, can you help me sort out the NFC playoff picture here? I mean, you look at the top three teams, and I don't trust any of those quarterbacks, and it's the bottom three teams that seem to have, well, not seem to, they are. I mean, they are the most reputable guys in that conference playoff ahead. If you can handicap this thing for us, who would you make the favorite in the NFC?
Wow, that's a really good question, because we've been talking about how loaded the NFC has been, how deep it's been, even with teams that are not going to be in the playoffs. The one team I trust above anybody else, and I know I'm saying that with air quotes around trust, would have to be the New Orleans Saints, because the kind of defense they play and the kind of running game they have, that's going to travel, whether they play indoors or outdoors. Now, I look at the Minnesota Vikings, that they have home field advantage. Anything can happen. But I still don't know about Case Keenum, because in a big moment, I've seen him do it in the regular season, but can he do it in the playoffs with all that pressure on him and all that intense scouting that's going to be there? Because now they're going to be more focused on making him make plays to see if he can do that. But I look at Drew Brees, who's going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and that running game with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara and all those receivers that they have, and the defense makes just enough plays. The only thing that could undermine their defense are injuries. With Kenny Vaccaro, their safety, he's going to be out, and he's been a big factor in that secondary. But if I had to place it on one team because of their quarterback, because of their coach, because of their style, that team is going to be the New Orleans Saints. But it's a crapshoot in the NFC, because what if the Rams get hot with the way that they're able to turn over the football, like force turnovers, and have Todd Gurley running the football? What if the Eagles can have the reemerge of Nick Foles from 2013, not what we've seen the last couple of weeks? When you have that kind of parity in the NFC, you could throw a dart at any one of the 6 teams that will make the playoffs and say, okay, I can make a case for that team going through and getting to the Super Bowl and representing the NFC.
Freddie, final stop for us. I know you will be watching. How good of these semifinals do you think they will be on Monday? College football we're talking about, to determine which 2 teams will play in the national championship. These games have close written all over them. What are you thinking here in the Final Four for college football?
Roger, it's going to be the nectar of the gods if you are a college football fan with these 2 semifinals, not only having Oklahoma versus Georgia and Alabama versus Clemson. But you have 4 programs that are storied programs. You have 4 great storylines with each team. Alabama in a revenge game. Clemson trying to make it back-to-back. Oklahoma trying to win their first national championship since the early 2000s. And Georgia could be a sleeping giant now that Kirby Smart has been able to show exactly what he can do with recruiting. And they have not won a national championship since Herschel Walker was the running back in 1980 as a freshman. So when you get those kind of 4 different storylines, I think it's going to be great theater. I don't see anybody blowing out anybody. I think when it's all said and done, I got Georgia winning the semifinal game against Oklahoma.
Uh-huh.
Baker Mayfield's terrific, but they got some dudes on that defense led by Raquan Smith, the linebacker of Georgia, that will get after him and pressure him. And Oklahoma's defense will not be able to stand up against the running game led by Sony Michel and Nick Chubb. On the other side, it worries me that Vegas has Alabama as a favorite. As Lee Corso says on College Game Day, they know something. They did not build all those buildings in Las Vegas because they gave away money. They built those buildings because they win money from people. So if they think that Alabama should be favored, Vegas knows something. I got Alabama and Georgia playing in a national championship game.
Yeah, I do think Alabama, and I'll further that. I do have Oklahoma winning, but I've got Alabama winning the whole thing when it's all said and done. But we'll have a few weeks after the Monday to figure that all out and more hype. But, if you're a college football fan, it's going to be late. It's going to be late because that second game doesn't go until 8:45 Eastern. But if you're a college football fan, it doesn't get much better.
Well, take the day off from work because you're not going to be working on January 1st anyway. So take the day off from work.
Yeah, I'll take the day off.
Whatever doctors know you need, find it and make sure you don't have to go to work on January 2nd.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's the day after that I'm worried about.
Yes.
Freddie, listen, Happy New Year, man. Can't thank you enough for all you do for us and for this show. We appreciate it. Can't wait to reconvene in 2018.
My pleasure, guys. You guys have a great New Year, and we'll definitely talk again soon.